Remember how Hollywood thought that the shared universe concept is the next big thing? Well, times have changed. So it's no secret that many companies have tried to do this shared universe gimmick when it comes down to their franchises, and although a few of them are doing fairly well, most of them seem to fail. And now it seems like a bunch of shared universes are about to either get scrapped or gonna get pushed to the sidelines. Now on the surface, it does seem like a relatively great idea, by having a bunch of franchises cross over from one another and make one amazing event, while expanding on the universe and so on and so forth. However, a major problem with these is the fact that a bunch of them have to have this sort of uniform aesthetic to each of the films. And in essence, a bunch of the solo movies tend to fall in that regard, because the studios want their shit their way, while the creative team don't really have much to play around with. So what I'm going to do in this video is essentially have a brief overview at each and every main shared universe from Hollywood and kinda see how they stand and what's happening to them. And then ultimately see whether the shared universe is actually dying as a concept or are they going to be staying strong for years to come. And like I said, I'm only going to be focusing on the main big franchises that currently have their own shared universe. Now the whole shared universe concept did originate from the MCU by Marvel Studios, which is really the studio that has perfected the shared universe concept. Because unlike most of the shared universes, Marvel has actually took their time and made sure that each and every film fits in consistently with the overall universe, while at the same time allowing the creative team to do their own spin on each film. In other words, allowing the production team to make a good movie first and have the whole world building thing as a secondary asset. And because the MCU has really been successful, Marvel Studios won't be giving up anytime soon, considering that they plan years in advance, while making sure that each and every film can be their own separate thing while at the same time fitting into the overall universe. And thanks to Marvel Studios, the MCU is really the beginning of this entire shared universe craze. And after seeing the success of the MCU, Warner Brothers decided to jump on the bandwagon by kickstarting the DC Extended Universe so that they can play catch up with Marvel Studios. And as you can see from Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, you can tell that the shared universe thing has really been rushed. And it took them up until Wonder Woman where they finally had their first really good film under their belt. And as you can see from the film slate, you can always see that it always seems to be changing, and that Warner Brothers always announces a bunch of movies without giving them a proper release date, and then always having to push a lot of movies to the sidelines. And in recent memory, it does seem like Warner Brothers are starting to push the DC Extended Universe to the sidelines and make more standalone movies that are unrelated to the DCEU. And it really does seem like Warner Brothers are not as confident in the overall Extended Universe as they once were. And then you also have Fox doing their own Extended Universe featuring mostly the X-Men characters, which they did try with the origin movies, but after Wolverine's, they decided to fling it out the window and then try again years later. As evident with Deadpool having his own franchise, as well as X-Force, New Mutants, Gambit is still in development, and even Cable could be having his own franchise soon. Now, as you can tell from each entry of the X-Men Extended Universe, you can tell that they are actually winging this whole shared universe idea. Because on one hand you have Logan and Deadpool, which turned out to be amazing, while on the other hand you have films such as X-Men Apocalypse that kinda flopped. But despite some of the missteps that Fox seems to be having, it seems like they finally have somewhat of a plan in order to carry on with their shared universe. But on the other hand, you also have Universal's Dark Universe, which does seem to be failing by a landslide. And this isn't even the first time they fucked up either, as infamously Dracula Untold was meant to be the beginning of this shared universe, but after it flopped they retconned this entirely and started again with The Mummy. And shockingly, The Mummy also failed, and now it seems like Universal is going back to the drawing board, seeing as how the Dark Universe is on hold indefinitely. And apparently there's some rumours that they're going to stop the Dark Universe entirely, purely because their last two attempts gave them cold feet. But give credit where credit is due, at the very least they know when they're defeated. Sony. But speaking of Sony, they're actually trying the shared universe thing again with Spider-Man, featuring Venom, Silver and Black, Nightwatch, Sinister Six, and even Kraven and Mysterio movies, none of which have any connections to Spider-Man himself at all. And the only reason as to why Sony is doing this in the first place is because they're losing so much money that at this point they have to gamble and make their own shared universe in order to survive, despite how nobody wants this. And continuing on the trend with the doomed franchises, we also have the Transformers Extended Universe, or the Habbo Extended Universe if they're still gonna connect the Transformers with the G.I. Joe. Now on the surface it does seem like a good idea considering that Transformers often make a bunch of money. However, their luck seemed to have ran out by the time the 5th film came around, which made even less money than the 1st film. And the 5th film was the most expensive one to make as well. And yes, they are starting with the Bumblebee movie as we speak. How the thing is, if the main Transformers movies are starting to decline, then what makes you think that the Bumblebee spin-off movie will be salvageable and will keep this extended universe thing afloat? And yeah, they're also working on the 6th film. However, I'm willing to bet by the time we get the 6th film, then this extended universe for the Transformers will be completely scrapped and will most likely be rebooted. And despite the success of Star Wars, they're finally going to begin their own shared universe out of this franchise. Seeing as how we've already got some spin-off movies such as Rogue One, as well as getting some solo movies featuring Han Solo, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett and Yoda, with potentially more spin-offs coming down the pipeline. And although Disney seems to be fairly confident with the Star Wars shared universe, it seems like there's a bunch of conflicts from behind the scenes, as there has been a bunch of swap overs in between Rogue One, Han Solo and Episode 9, which is incredibly concerning given that this is actually Star Wars. And if Disney continues to do what they're doing and meddle between the production of each film, then it will be something incredibly catastrophic. But until then, I don't think that Star Wars is in too much of a trouble. And then you also have the legendary MonsterVerse featuring Godzilla and King Kong, to which so far it doesn't seem like they're doing too bad. Now as far as I'm aware, it does seem like they're actually trying to do a crossover between Godzilla and King Kong, which is meant to come out in 2020. But then after Godzilla vs Kong, this is going to be the end of it and both Kong and Godzilla will have their own separate franchises, only to never cross over again. And if this is true, then this is a pretty strange tactic. But then again, at least they do have a straightforward idea. And then you get to the Cloverfield universe, or what is currently dubbed as the Cloververse. Now this shared universe is by far the strangest in terms of how they're trying to execute this thing, as it appears that they're going to be their own standalone movies for the most part. However, there's going to be some connect the dots thing in between each film. And this to me is extremely weird because the next film in the Cloververse, as it's apparently dubbed, will take place in space and is going to be called the God Particle. And then the one after that is rumoured to be about Nazi zombies, which to me this seems incredibly strange yet vague at the same time, but I guess we'll have to see how this will all play out. But the craziest thing about all this is the most successful shared universe outside of the MCU, believe it or not, appears to be the LEGO franchise. And despite how they only have 2 films released, they're doing extremely well, with both the LEGO Movie and LEGO Batman being critically acclaimed movies and making a shit ton of money out of the low budget that they had. But not only that, they also have the Ninjago movie coming up and they're even starting to work on LEGO Movie 2. And despite how laughable of a concept it is to make a shared universe out of LEGO, they seem to have pulled it off by making incredibly fun movies while at the same time keeping their universe surprisingly consistent. And I believe that the LEGO shared universe will be sticking around for quite some time. Now overall, when it comes down to the shared universe, it does seem to vary depending on the companies and the franchises. Some of them are staying strong, while others are crumbling down. Some of them appear to be ticking time bombs waiting to blow up, while others seem to be winging it as they go along. Some of which appear to be short term, while others have too many cooks in the kitchen. Some of which are starting to shy away from the whole shared universe concept, while others are rushing them out purely out of survival. Some of them have found a different way to do the shared universe altogether, while others surprisingly keep their momentum. But at the end of the day, it is uncertain on whether the shared universe concept will die down or whether they're going to stay alive. And it really comes down to the overall execution of each shared universe. Maybe some of them will be crashing down while the strong ones will stand out for years to come. So what do you think of the whole concept of a shared universe? Do you think that they're finally dying down, or do you believe that they're going to be sticking around for years to come? Comment below and share some thoughts. And as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.